Now, we will see how there was an emergence of economic nationalism. In every region, even in the most oppressive one, there might be some people or groups who benefit from the existing system and flourish. The same was the case during the British rule. There were many Rajas, Maharajas, Nawabs, Zamindars, Talukadars, Mahajans and Sahukaras who lived in full satisfaction and without the least anxiety. But was the nation as a whole happy and prosperous? Clearly no, because though few classes enjoyed, masses suffered. It was sectarian economic appeasement. The country lacked the environment of economic nationalism, in which the whole nation could enjoy the fruits of progress and production. In the words of B.G. Tilak, a country cannot be said to have, economically speaking, improved so long as the conditions of toiling majority in that country have not improved. The Indian nationalist leaders, especially during the last quarter of 19th century, made their focus of attention the condition of masses and not that of classes. Expressing the same spirit, the famous educationist reformer Syed Ahmad Khan once observed, "To me, the national honor refers to a state in which the whole nation is satisfied, majority is equipped with skill and knowledge, and all existing sciences and technology, industries and inventions are found in the nation." Now, we will see what Dadabhai Naoroji said between 1825 to 1970. Dadabhai Naoroji was among the leading nationalist leader who arose the feeling of economic nationalism and propagated for it. The most instrumental in this regard has been the theory of drain. Drain, a national loss. The theory of drain is not the invention of Dadabhai Naoroji. About 230 years ago, in 1776, Adam Smith, in his work The Wealth of Nation, described the British rulers of India as plunderers of India. In 1857, Karl Marx used almost the same words as used by Dadabhai Naoroji to describe the drain. Dadabhai himself refers to about a dozen of Britishers among his predecessors and contemporaries who vouched for drain. In the 19th century, the drain of wealth from India to England took the form of unrequited surplus of export over import. It was in 1867 that for the first time Dadabhai Naoroji, in his paper England's Debt to India, put forward the idea that Britain was extracting wealth from India as a price of her rule in India, that out of the revenues raised in India, nearly 1/4 went clean out of the country and was added to the resources of England, and that India was consequently being bled. Dadabhai Naoroji dedicated his life to propagation of the drain theory and to launching a roaring campaign against the drain, which was considered by him to be the fundamental evil of British rule in India. Since the statistical methods and standardized techniques of national income calculation were not developed at that time, there was difference of opinion on the volume and extent of wealth transferred to England from India. But the fact there was continuously drain of wealth from India to England was undisputed issue among the nationalist leaders at that time. Only the agents and some officials of British government did not accept the drain theory and criticized it, but the truth could not be suppressed much longer. Dadabhai Naoroji was an admirer of British character and system. He acknowledged wholeheartedly the British contribution to India regarding education, centralized administration, discipline, political unification of the country, railways, telegraphs, hospital, security, etc. But he could not reconcile himself to the outcome of British rule in India. To him, the British rule in India was an un-British in character. While addressing a meeting in England in aid of Indian Famine Relief Fund on July 1st, 1900, he said, "If it were British rule and not un-British rule which governed us, England would be benefited 10 times more than it is." Dadabhai Naoroji adopted a pervasive approach to cure the malpractices of British rule and get the drain checked. He frequently referred to British government's pledges and assurances given to Indians. He used to quote many British officials about the importance of India to British Empire and that India's prosperity was a prerequisite for Britain's prosperity. Perhaps it was his pervasive tactics that he reiterated in the second session of the Indian National Congress that this Congress was not a nursery for sedition and rebellion against the British government, and that it was another stone in the foundation of the stability for that government. He also appealed to the morale of the British people and the government and emphasized on cooperation to strengthen the British government. But all this was in vain. There was no sign of change in British policy of exploitation and suppression. Realizing this, Dadabhai Naoroji started expressing his displeasure and disapproval of British rule in India. He exposed the reality of protection provided by the British government. In 1895, he clearly understood the aims and objectives of the government in colonization of India and declared that British India was indeed the British India and not India's India. But he was slow in putting forward the national demands. Dadabhai Naoroji exposed the danger of rain forcefully and pointed out its impact on the Indian economy. According to him, it was rain that caused and intensified the famines in India. It was the fundamental cause of mass poverty. The rain was a slow poisoning to the India's national economy. According to Dadabhai Naoroji, the injury inflicted to India by earlier foreign invaders was limited. It was once and over, but the British rule in India was an unending chain of drain and exploitation. Dadabhai Naoroji opposed the opium trade of Britain with China from the Indian land. According to him, this being an act of immorality covered the intensity of drain. Call for political nationalism and self-rule. Dadabhai spent his full energy to propagate the theory of drain. After years of reconciling effort and persuasion of British authority, he was disappointed from lack of any reform on the part of British rulers, and accordingly the sentiments of disloyalty crept into him, whose full demonstration we find in his speeches of 1904 and 1905, in which he declared that the self-government is the only solution for India's misery. In his message of the Banaras session of the Indian National Congress, he asserted, "Without self-government, the Indians can never get rid of their present drain and the consequent impoverishment, misery and destruction." As early as in 1876, in his essay on poverty of India, he laid stress on the fact that Britain was able to keep back a large part of India's exports, chiefly because of the political position it held over India. In Calcutta session of Indian National Congress, Dadabhai was over emphatic when he declared in his presidential address that all the political demands of Indian people could be summed up in one word: self-government or Swaraj, like that of the United Kingdom or the colonies. Dadabhai Nauroji struggled for this cause for the next 12 years before he died in 1970. But the revolutionary spirit with which he filled the Indian masses continued to work till Indian people achieved the freedom in 1947 and forced the sun of British Empire to set down in the east. It is true, as Dadabhai envisaged, that the prosperity of masses or economic nationalism is not possible without self-rule or political nationalism. Similarly, it is also true that political nationalism or independent Similarly, it is also true that political nationalism or independence is incomplete without the welfare and prosperity of masses. Thus, both economic and political nationalism are supplementary and complementary to each other, and this is what to be struggled for.